Good morning, everyone. Kaye here on my homestead in Tennessee. And finally, I am doing a review of all of my varieties of tomatoes and a taste test. So don't go anywhere. Okay, so I believe I counted 26 varieties that I planted. Most of these tomatoes I purchased through Baker Creek, rareseeds.com. And I have to say that I can't blame the tomatoes so much because we had this extraordinary weather, which I've been reporting on, for a couple of months. I mean, we had an enormous amount of rain in July. I mean, just downpour after downpour, many inches of rain, and the tomatoes they got too much rain. And they split, and when they split, then the bugs move in, and it's very hard to, plus, before they split, they have too much water in them, so they don't have that great flavor that you're expecting anyway. So it was tough. And I know most of the people in the country had the opposite problem. No rain, drought. So, I mean, I'm not complaining, but I didn't get the result that I had imagined. I planted a lot of Dad's Sunset. I wanted, it's a big, meaty yellow tomato and not a lot of divisions in the flesh in the middle. It just looked like a great tomato for sandwiches. I don't even have one to show you. I did get a couple, but that's about it. I planted Castelluto Genovese. I got a few of those, but many of them rotted. Carbon also was a similar variety that I had hoped to make great sandwiches because the whole center is just flesh. Not a lot of seeds in the middle. Floridade. This is just an illustration, so it's hard to see what it looks like. I don't have one to show you, unfortunately. I did get a few of these Castelluto Florentino, but once again, the rotting, the splitting, the bugs. The Golden King of Siberia, that's this one. It's the only one I have. I think it's the last one. And it's badly damaged, but we're going to cut one little bite out of it. I soaked it in vinegar and water and to kill anything that might have crawled in there, so we're going to taste it. White Beauty is a fantastic tomato. It's very delicate though, and you can easily miss its perfect ripeness, and it goes very, very quickly. As soon as it's ripe, the next day it's rotten and falls off. So especially if it's raining too much. That's the biggest issue that I had. Too much rain and stink bugs. My whole garden, I would say that's the problem with most everything. Stink bugs. I think I had a worldwide convention here. They traveled from far and wide. Big group of stink bugs. They really enjoyed my garden. Berkeley Tie-Dye Pink is one of my favorite tomatoes. I don't even have one to show you here. So many tomatoes rotted and fell off. I've got Pink Bumblebee. I've got a similar tomato here. I don't have one of those, but I got a few out of that. Tomato Grappoli di Inverno. This has a stronger skin, and it holds up better against the bugs and the splitting. So I got quite a few of those, and I made those I canned those. The Hungarian Heart is kind of an amazing tomato. It produced really large tomatoes, bigger than what I thought I would see on here. And I'll give you close-ups of all this. And I have one to show you here. It's, that has to weigh a pound, or close to a pound. But you can see it's shaped like a heart. But what happens is at the top, just like all the rest, they split at the top, and the splits work their way down. And by the time you can get to it, it's full of bugs. Now, if you only have 5 or 10 plants, no problem. You can really stay on top of it. But as anyone who's been following me knows, I went overboard. I planted more than I could handle because of, you know, what I see happening, and I wanted to be able to be prepared with a lot of extra food to either sell if things were fine or give away if things are not fine. That was an experiment that I tried, and fortunately I managed to find some help once a week in June, so I was able to do that. Tomato Black Vernissage was a tomato that was given away free at the National Heirloom Expo, which is, Baker Creek is the sponsor for that seed expo. They were giving away some of these seeds in 2017, and I got some, and I've been planting some ever since. Now this is one of the ones that I recommend for a couple of reasons. They have it's this size to a little bit larger. You know, it can be this size, like a cherry tomato, a good sized cherry tomato, to twice this size. That's about as big as I've seen this one. And it has a little bit stronger of a skin, so it can withstand more of the pressure, you know, from moisture, too much moisture too fast. Doesn't split as readily as many of the other tomatoes. And so for that reason, I would definitely grow this again. Also, I have fermented some cherry tomatoes, and if you fermented tomatoes with a very fragile, delicate skin, you know that it just sort of almost disintegrates in the fermenting process. But this holds up so that you can put a whole tomato in your mouth, fermented tomato in your mouth, and explodes with flavor. So I will definitely be growing that again. I'm definitely going to grow Henderson's Pink Ponderosa. I did not have a great result from that, but it's a beautiful tomato, and I think I have an example of the inside, which is just, I mean, it's kind of a perfect tomato. You know, it has just the right amount of flesh to seed ratio, and I'll definitely be growing that again. I've already sliced that one because, once again, the top was messed up. Tomato Glacier is a cherry tomato, and you can see it right on the packet. The area where it attaches to the vine stays yellow, but the great thing is you can pull them in before they're completely ripe, and they'll ripen up on the counter. The Principe Borghese tomato I grew last year, and it was one of the few that withstood the stretching and the splitting and everything, and it did better than the other cherry tomatoes last year. So I'll be growing that again. I got quite a few of those. I don't know if I have one on here. I don't think I do. I used all my cherry tomatoes for fermenting. Tomato Blue Beauty. Now, Blue Beauty, it says, let's see, gorgeous deep blue-black shoulders make this unique among slicing types. It says slicer to 8 ounces. Well, I have one here. I don't think that would be considered an 8-ounce tomato. No, that's like a 4-ounce tomato. So I didn't get any big ones of this, but what I did get was a lot of smaller ones. In fact, here's another one here. And then Garryosena. Someone gave me seeds. I wish I could remember exactly who, but I had this very small group when I first started gardening, and we exchanged seeds. And somebody sent me the Garryosena, and I have been growing it ever since. And I've only used my own seeds for 11 years. And it's, even though I grow all of these varieties, it still produced great tomatoes this year. Now, once again, it's getting mushy because, you know, you bring in a lot of tomatoes, you don't eat them right away, and they don't last. You can't put them in the refrigerator because they just ruin in the refrigerator. So Garryosena is a keeper. I will continue. Blueberry cherry tomato, if I grew those, I don't have any. I don't know what happened. Tomato yellow pear. This is not something I would grow again, and I'll tell you why. It produces a lot of tomatoes. Now, I will say though, if you're on irrigation and you can control your water, this would be great because it is prolific, but they always split. Absolutely, almost every single one splits. I think I was able to eat 1 out of maybe 100 tomatoes this year. And then Yoder's German Yellow is another one I've been growing since the beginning, since 2013 anyway. And I only saw a couple. They were planted on the terraces, and my tomato plants on my terraces did much differently than the ones down below. Aunt Ruby's German Green I would definitely do again. It is my favorite tomato. I only had 1 green tomato this year. This one was messed up on the top, but the rest of it's good, and we will be doing including that in the taste test. I believe I did Sweetheart Cherry tomatoes, but nothing to report on that. Didn't really get any. Daryl, my friend Daryl gave me something he calls the outhouse cherry tomato, which was growing by someone's outhouse, and that's why they named it that. I had a bunch of cherry tomatoes, but they all just didn't do well because of all of the too much rain. My friend Tracy, who's been following me for a long time, she sent me a bunch of varieties, and to my knowledge, I think only the this one, which I have 3 examples. Very prolific, pear-shaped. It was oblong with a point at the bottom. I believe that's the one, Martino's Roma. Very prolific, and I would definitely grow that again. I mean, it is a paste tomato. It's like a Roma tomato, so it is a Roma tomato. So it's not going to be a great slicing tomato or a great tomato to pop into your mouth. She sent me a white tomato, a terracotta tomato, Aunt Ruby's German Green, which I already had, and True Black Brandywine. If I manage to grow any of those, I have nothing to report. Okay, let's just start out with the Tomato Blue Beauty. And you can see it really lives up to its picture. Very beautiful tomato. And held up actually as well as any of them did. I think I'm just going to taste test one of the smaller ones. It is very juicy. I mean, this one's very ripe, but it is a very juicy tomato with not a lot of flesh in there. Aunt Ruby's German Green. Let's get a better slice on this. If you've never grown a green tomato, you have to remember you really need to tag your plants, because otherwise you might think that this is just a green tomato and you might not harvest it. But it has sort of a distinctive kind of pattern with the flesh and the seeds. So this will go into our taste test. And then this is the pink ponderosa, already cut. You can see what a great, beautiful slicing tomato. Very juicy. Let's do the Garryosena. It has a more of a dark red bottom and a green top. One of my favorites. This is end of the season, so not everything is perfect, but check this out. Look at all that meat in the middle. Let's get a nice slice here. This is the black vernissage. So you can see, typical cherry tomato, not a lot of flesh, a lot of seeds, a lot of juice. King of Siberia. This actually produced a lot of tomatoes, but they were so problematic This is an example. Very light, juicy, and this is the Hungarian Heart. This big one. It's got some bruises. Let's just go right down the middle. You see, it's just a real meaty tomato. This would be great for cooking or a sandwich. Just get us a sample. This is a different one, and I'm not sure. It's another Roma tomato. It's always good to grow Romas for cooking. Okay, here's the fun part. So let's start with the obvious. This is the Aunt Ruby's German green. The first time I tried this, I was with my friend Luis down in Long Beach, and I had never tasted anything like it, and I vowed to grow it, and I've grown it ever since. That's not the best one I've ever had. Earlier in the season would have been better, okay? But very juicy. And this is the Siberia. Once again, earlier in the season I think would have been better. It's a little tart, but very good. Very juicy. Yeah, this one's the pink ponderosa. Very good, very juicy. None of these are very acidic. This is the Hungarian Heart. Very meaty, very juicy. Skin is a little tough. Okay, and here's the Garriosena. This is so reliable, and I have grown so many varieties close together, you know I do, and yet it still seems true to what I originally grew. Let's see. This is that Roma. You know Romas are Romas. It's fine. Nothing great. But, you know, you cook them, so. Now, unfortunately, I don't know what this is. I could probably identify it from the packet, but that's more acidic. Yeah, that's really good. That would be good on a sandwich. Very good. This is the Blue Beauty. It's good. Very juicy. The skin is pretty delicate, and really, I fermented some of those, and the skin was very, very delicate. Now, just as a bonus, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to grow again for sure, because I've had such consistent luck with them over the years. I didn't have a lot of luck this year because of too much rain, too much drought, and then too much rain. But I will definitely be growing the Yoder's German Yellow. That's a big, beautiful yellow tomato. Aunt Ruby's German Green. That's a keeper. The Garriosena, definitely a keeper. I might try the Dad's Sunset again. It's just that I didn't get very many because the weather, it didn't hold up against bad weather. I'll grow this pink Ponderosa again. And I will do some of these Italian tomatoes also. The Hungarian Heart, probably not, only because it makes these huge tomatoes. It takes a long time, and the longer a tomato stays on the vine, the more you risk something going wrong. You know, it'll be going great and it'll look fantastic, and then you'll get 3 straight days of rain and you'll go out and the whole top is cracked and brown and bugs. And I personally would rather do nice medium-sized tomatoes like this size and down, and just and the Garryosena. Now the Garryosena, the German, Aunt Ruby's German Green, and the Yoder's German Yellow are all going to make big tomatoes, but it cannot be beat. The white tomato was lovely, but catching that just exactly when it's ripe is very hard. In 2 years, I think I've had 2 good ones. So, not worth it. I forgot one thing I meant to say. Amish paste is my hands down favorite paste tomato. And I did grow them this year. In fact, I planted I planted my seeds that I'd saved. Someone sent me seeds. I'm not sure who sent me seeds, but I planted those. Seeds of Generation I planted, and the Baker Creek. And it's a pretty reliable paste tomato. It's just that it's done, and I didn't have one to show you today. So I hope that's helpful. I hope you enjoyed this taste test, and if you did, leave me a comment below. I hope you subscribe to my journey here to build a sustainable homestead. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.